Started and announcements. We are being recorded, but before we start, I want to give a special moment of silence and extend our condolences to Tim, the Hart family, and the rest of the entire wildland fire community. So if you please join us with a moment of silence starting now. All right, guys. Cheers to all of you. Hope everybody makes it home safe this year. That being said, we're going to get started. We're just going to kind of ad-lib this one and kind of go for it due to the nature of our professions. Some of us are going to be out in the field and we're going to be doing fire stuff, unfortunately. And that's just one thing we kind of have to navigate during these monthly meetings during the summer months. The shoulder seasons are a lot easier to navigate. But with that being said, Dutch, what do you got for us?
Hey, thanks, Brandon. And good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name's Pete Dutchick. I go by Dutch. I've been in fire roughly 19 seasons now. Spent 6 years with the McCall Smoke Jumpers, and then rest of the time pretty much with a variety of different crews, hotshot crews, and the Folsom Lake Veterans Crew. So, with that. My focus in the group, or at least one piece of it, has been on comprehensive health and well-being. Right now, our two focuses right now are on mental health and all that encompasses that, and then on acute and long-term health effects. So, in kind of backtracking, what I'd say some of the updates between the last call and now, we did put out a press release back in mid-May, Mental Health Awareness Month. Huge thanks to Anchor Point Podcast.
Can I tell you what I got?
Stand by one.
Please stand by for technical difficulties.
I love it.
That's the real deal right there.
That is the real deal. Yep.
We'll be getting into families here in a few minutes, but that's part of my family right there. That's my daughter, Ella. She's 5.5 years old and has a lot of energy. In delving into that, I was, I think, giving a shout out to Brandon and the Anchor Point Podcast for the survey they'd put together, and come together with Grassroots to help release that. So thank you. If y'all haven't seen that, take a peek at the website. In line with that, and in line with what's been a really tough 2 weeks for the fire community, I think it really hammers home the need for continued support, and not just in times of trauma, but really building a fire culture that's open to talk about issues that we're facing, that we face from being gone from months on end, being put in incredibly dangerous situations, the close calls, the trauma, and we are committed to continue to push that forward and create change. So, in line with some of the data we've collected, we also put up a narrative / interview from Mike West. For those that don't know you, Mike was in fire for roughly about 16 years, a hotshot in dispatch, an engine captain. He is a great friend of mine, and I just want to commend him for his courage. He is now a school teacher. He was an incredible hotshot. I know he's going to be an incredible teacher, but huge thanks to him. And the crux of, the powerful points we put together in a 5-pager, along with the entire narrative that we added as well. it really hammers home, some of the close calls many of us have faced over the years, and how those can translate into broader things. And it, I think the key piece to that is just letting folks know that they're not alone. We've all been in those situations, and just how important it is to talk about it, to reach out to your fire family, and if need be, reach out for that professional help as well. So thanks again to Mike West, and also to Kelly Ramsey for helping put that together. The last piece to mental health, we also wanted to focus on, it's not just about firefighters, it's about their families as well. It's easy to focus on, the intensity that we have on the line, being away from home. But, our partners are struggling as well, raising kids, working, you name it. And the struggle is certainly real. And it's so important to focus on that support structure, I think, and bring folks together. And again, keep those lines of communication open. So we will be focusing on that here in the next few months, looking into putting together a survey to see how what we're calling our second responders are doing, which is just as critical. So keep tuned for that. About 3 months ago, the Comprehensive Health and Wellbeing also branched off a smoke exposure subcommittee. During that time, we've been gathering data from what we think are some of the best researchers out there to get the most up-to-date data, but also looking back over the last 25 years to see what's out there and how that's evolved. So we're continuing to gather that. We're also working with a lot of local structure departments. Huge thanks to San Francisco Fire Department and their Cancer Foundation, and meeting with us, talking about some options and some things that they've put together as they have a presumptive cancer built into their workforce, and even talking with them about some of their reporting process. So we think that's very important, and we're continuing to track that down as well. And then the last side, I've been working with and talking with Brent Ruby. For those of you that don't know him, he's been studying wildland fire and the effects from everything to nutrition, exposure to heat, and much more, diving into the smoke. So he's been a huge advocate for firefighters over the last several decades, and we're really excited to be working with him, especially geared toward some of the acute health effects that our wildland fire workforce is facing. With that, I think that's that's kind of the gist of what we've been working on within the committee. We're looking at a few other surveys. And then, the last piece, as Brandon mentioned, it's times like these, an awful couple of weeks, that, the mental health side of it really hits home, but also just how the fire community comes together, the bonds that are formed on the line, in the trenches, and how we come together. So with that, encourage anyone that's not feeling good, that wants to talk, to reach out to your friends, to your fire family, and keep an eye on one another. Thanks everyone again for being here tonight. It's great to see everyone. And with that, Brandon, I'll pass it back over to you.
Thanks, Judge. And to all those people out there in the crowd right now, if you have any information or additional information as far as studies or anything that you could point our direction to where we could work together with these other organizations, we're more than receptive to that information. And it's only going to benefit the wildland firefighters on the ground. So that being said, moving on, we're going to go to Smoke Jumper Bro. Is he on the call yet?
Oh yeah, I'm here.
There he is.
Sorry, this is going to be super janky, but I've got a bad internet connection. And I'm actually at my wife's birthday party, so I've got to update and run. Can you guys hear me okay?
We gotcha.
Okay. So sorry, it's hard to see. Here's our website. A lot of really great updates going on. First of all, start at the top. We've got an engine and a hotshot crew staffing survey. Everything's confidential, but anybody, any crew member, can fill these out. So there's engine survey and hotshot survey. We're working actively on Helitack and fire use modules as well. Fill those out and help us figure out if there's staffing issues outside of Region 5. That's definitely a key as we move forward.
Hey, Smoke, bro, if you don't mind if I butt in, but I can share my screen and get the big full screen view if you'd like.
Oh, well, you guys tell me. I'm on mobile, so I can't really tell if it's good or bad.
I'm just going to go ahead and share the screen here. Or if they're faster than me, let's share the screen.
Okay. I can turn my video off. Yeah, sorry, but I'm on the road.
I'm actually surprised your wife let you do this on her birthday. Congratulations.
Well, they're out throwing water balloons. Okay. So now let's talk about the Mike West narrative that Pete was discussing. If you click that link, that gets you to the highlights of Mike's interview with Pete and Kelly Ramsey. I mean, it's just so awesome to read it. Everybody should read it. And then kind of right there's a link for the full PDF. That one is a long read, but it's just one of those things you've got to read it. And if you've got time, do it, because it's really powerful. It's so great. If you want to go back to the homepage, I'd like to go over Vicky Christensen's testimony. We've kept that up there. I mean, that's just so powerful, having the chief of the Forest Service, acknowledge that there's a pay gap upwards of $50,000 a year. $38,000 for federal firefighters in the Forest Service and the BLM, DOI, versus 70 to 88,000 with better benefits. So hearing that come out of the chief's mouth was, it's just great to just have somebody acknowledge that. And we're just so happy to be working with Senator Feinstein's office on a lot of stuff. So a lot of things to be excited about there. If you want to scroll down to the next section. Yep. So you can see there's a link for our bill proposal that you can read. This is kind of what we're shopping to legislators. There's our one-page briefing paper. Yep, and that kind of just gives some quick hitter facts. We're probably going to update that. It just changes so quickly. And if you want to go back to the homepage now, yep, there's Reva Duncan's testimony. And that just is, I mean, it's just great to see all this stuff, to have a place where you can go and, just watch some of these videos, and it kind of gets you fired up. So if you want to go back to, if you want to go to that legislation drop down, Brandon, so that again shows our one-page briefing paper, our bill, the Classification and Pay Parity Act of 2021. But then another resource is the current introduced legislation. And that gives everything that is relevant to federal wildland firefighters and our take on it. So, outside of these bills, there's not really anything introduced that has much of anything to do with federal wildland firefighters directly. So this is kind of your resource to figure out what legislative things to look at, or to educate yourself on as an employee and an advocate. I think if you want to go to the issues drop down, so we've got CAL FIRE in Colorado for pay disparity that you guys can see, and I can just attest to this, that legislative offices are using our website to inform their policy making decisions with regarding pay and what levels of pay they should be putting in they should be advocating for. And so one of the things that we need help with, it goes along with the staffing surveys, is, what are the pay scales like for state wildland firefighters in Oregon or Washington, Idaho, Montana, Arizona, other states that have staffing issues. That's a great one that anybody could help with. Misclassification is a new one we just put up last week. One of our members added that, and it's a really great overview of forestry technician and how it started and why it just doesn't really work anymore. The mental health and firefighting, I need to add more to that. That's just simply a press release we released a couple of weeks ago. Below that is hazard pay reform, which it's just something that, everybody thinks firefighters want hazard pay, but really when you get down to it, it's just more pressure on the employee and less pressure on the employer. Like they get us at a discount when we're not actively on fires. Just all kinds of issues. If you get injured, retirement doesn't count for hazard pay doesn't count for retirement. And then we have our temp buyback renewal. It's just a nifty press release that we put on our website, and there's not much more to say. People are out there doing this job, and they're doing some of the hardest jobs as temps, and it should count for retirement, especially if you're going to stay in the career. We also have a sleep deprivation site, or sleep deprivation page, and that is off Randy Brooks' work from the University of Idaho. And that's just a great video to watch. He presents to I forget what fire prevention forum he presented to. I just can't see it, sorry, on mobile here. But that's a great one to educate yourself on. And then if you go to the Learn page, so this article, Twice Burned, I just saw this. It's on Grist, the website. It's such an incredible article, from Zora Thomas. I don't know who she is, but it's just everybody should read it. It really educates, about really what the firefighters on the ground are seeing and the lack of support they're getting. And then the next three are the articles that we worked with national media outlets to get through regarding staffing in California and throughout the West. Just great articles, and we're always adding more stuff. It's kind of the page is getting full with how much stuff's coming out, but I think it's great to we're just adding to it as we go, and I'm not taking anything out, so it's all there. Go to the monthly updates, and that's just really obvious. It's just our monthly updates. When we record it, we put it on here. I think we have more to put on, but we haven't done that yet. Let's go to the recognized organizations. These are all groups that have endorsed us and we endorse them. Check them out. Some of them are super, just great resources. I know FireMine doesn't have a website that's really up and running yet. Somebody else could talk more about that, but another great resource for all wildland firefighters. If you look at the contact page, this is where you sign up for our newsletter. We send out a newsletter when it's warranted. We're not spamming anybody. And but if you want to be on our mailing list, that's how you get it. Or if you just want to send us a message, down at the bottom, just fill out the message, and that'll get to our inbox. And the press page it's a great tool for press and media, where they kind of they see our news releases, we keep them there. Any articles that we actively are assisting with goes down in our press coverage section. And then it has our logo and stuff everybody can download. our store. I mean, if you don't have a tank top, it's time probably to get one. Our hats are really awesome. Our tank tops are all American Apparel. The shirts are American Apparel, and the stickers are sticky. So I'd say if you're going to get a tank top, you know, go up a size for sure. And the mug is a big hit. So hit all that stuff up. It has the website also has our links for social media. We have a YouTube channel that we started adding videos to. You know, nothing crazy. And then also the donate button, if you want to throw us some scratch or something, that's fine. But you know, we're just volunteering, so that's up to you. So I guess, you know, from my perspective, just talking with some of the offices and Feinstein's office specifically, but also others, you know, when we're looking at working on stuff to sell to other politicians, you know, one of the issues is, you know, we want to show that it's not just a California issue with pay or staffing. I mean, that's where it's obviously the most apparent, but it's all over the Western United States. I mean, people can't afford rent, especially if there's an injury or pregnancy or anything, or just a mental health emergency. So if I was going to say, you know, you want to get involved and help out, I'd say right now you know, helping us out with ODF, Oregon Department of Forestry, or Washington DNR, you know, the wages there, or if there's some kind of story to tell about benefits or other states, you know, I think probably Colorado and California are the big ones, and that's why those were up first. And then also just passing around those surveys, the links, just send them to whoever you know and have people fill them out, and then, you know, we'll see what they show. And that's all we're looking for, just to show the truth and put a spotlight on a lot of these issues that aren't being, you know, a lot of times they're not even being acknowledged by DOI and USDA. So that's all we're doing. But I've probably got to run. But thanks to everybody for coming, and we just got to keep pushing.
Thank you very much, Smoke Jumper Bro. And to tag on to what he was saying, also, if you guys have opportunities to bring in the public, Joe Blow public, anybody who's out there, there's a commonality among the general public that thinks that we are CAL FIRE, and that's not necessarily the case, obviously. So to educate the public on the issues that we face, it's absolutely critical that we do that, and also that we educate our own families. So to bring those folks into the fold and give them a little insight as to what we do, it'd be much appreciated. It's just going to appeal to a wider audience. That being said, Kelly, you're up next.
Thanks, Brandon. And thanks, Smoke Jumper Bro. And thanks, Dutch, for your presentation as well. Hang on one second. Let me see if I can. I'm going to try to change this to a gallery view. I guess I'd like to start with just a really quick background on how Grassroots got started. A couple of years ago, we were at the National Cohesive Wildland Fire Management Strategy Workshop in Plymouth, Massachusetts. And for those of you that are familiar with the National Cohesive Strategy, there really wasn't much of a nod given to the workforce and the wildland firefighters that we depend on for this cohesive strategy. So there was a couple of us in the room that said, you know what, there's no time like the present to really start thinking about how do we get our voices heard? How do we really rally around needed reforms? And, you know, just a few of us, we said, you know, met at the airport as we were leaving is, what do we do now? So we just started chatting it up on conference calls, and it really has grown to thousands of followers on Instagram, on our Facebook page. Brandon does an amazing job of, you know, outreach, and I just do really have to give a shout out to Bill Gabbert with Wildfire Today, because he has been following us as well. and has really taken a keen interest in our work. So Bill, hats off to you. Really want to say thanks for everything that you're doing for us as well. It's just, you've got a large reach, and I think you do tremendous journalism and reporting. So I just really want to say thanks for that. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the dancing guy and how to start a movement, but that's what it kind of feels like where we're at, is that we've really created quite a movement. There's never really been a forum like this for wildland firefighters to come together as a group to really address the urgent needed reforms for wildland firefighters. So it really is a very, very exciting time to be part, of a group like this, and we're only as good as all of you. So there's just been so many people that have been giving us advice and input and really supporting our efforts, which we're deeply, deeply grateful for. I also want to give a shout out to Neffy. We've been in communication with National Federal, did I get that right? National Federation of Federal Employees. So they're working on a lot of similar issues with the legislature, with the Congress as well, and I'll get into that here in just a minute. But I'm real excited about the page that Smoke Jumper Bro talked about in terms of the coalitions that we have forming and the people that are really getting behind these efforts to be very, very transparent and really, bring us into the pivot into the 21st century, if you will. Our goal, our premise of why we exist is because of all of you. We are retired, we're resigned, we're current federal employees, and the reason why current federal employees are somewhat reserved in terms of how much they really present here is people really do still fear of speaking up and speaking out and fear of retaliation. So we honor that. We are totally good with that. We understand that those are some issues that people still have to deal with in today's workforce. But we have 4 pillars. The Classification, Pay, and Benefits Parity Act, that one pager, the opening statement in the one pager that's on our website, is really critical to getting the things that we really, really need in terms of reforms. Classification, moving from forestry tech to an official OPM designation as a wildland firefighter, has been in the works for a very, very long time. That does not get us to pay parity, and why people are leaving federal wildland firefighting is they're seeing that they don't have to work the immense amount of overtime just to make a standard decent living wage. And so we do see people going to state agencies, municipalities, PG&E, and so we really are losing a really, really significant sunken cost that the taxpayers have paid for when we have 10 to 15-year veterans that are leaving the federal workforce. So we know we have to address pay and benefits and classification. So we're hopeful that working with the elected officials that we can really, really make inroads with Office of Personnel Management. What this actually looks like and what the models look like, we're unsure right now. We don't really know yet. But we are looking at Customs Border Patrol in terms of how they have their structure from entry level to increasing grade levels based upon training and qualifications and experience. We're looking at the GS 0081, which is mostly structure fire, but there's probably some really good similarities. Coast Guard has housing stipends. We know that people are really having a very difficult time even finding a place to rent, let alone trying to find a place to buy. It's just so, it's becoming so oppressive that we're losing a tremendous investment from the taxpayers when firefighters leave. So that's the pay. The benefits, we're very, very supportive of buying back seasonal time. We really want to push that one to help really gain leverage with 20 and 50 or 25 in any age. Being able to buy back seasonal time is an important part of benefits. Neffy is also working on Fair Retire Act. So if a firefighter is hurt or injured on the job and they can't come back to a primary or secondary position, they can finish their career in a non-covered position, but still get their firefighter coverage. So we're very, very supportive of that. We're also looking at stipends for incentivizing people to work on incident management teams. So that's pillar one. So if you've got any questions about, pillar one, throw it in the chat. I won't be able to get to it right now, but I think that having your input and your thoughts and ideas about classification, pay, and benefits, maybe we're missing something. We're trying to collect up as much information from all of you as we possibly can. Before I go on to pillar two, which is being led by Dutch, is the comprehensive health and well-being, wildland firefighter comprehensive health and well-being. Is there any questions? That please just unmute yourself before I move on to pillar two.
Hey, Kelly, the one thing that I forgot to add, and it's a quick go back, but just wanted to say how inspiring it is hearing from a few hotshot crews and some hand crews that have incorporated, the mental health awareness into some of their refresher training and some of the really good conversations that are coming out of that. And that goes into some of, I think, the preparation and just getting the fire community talking more early on, and that happening 20 years ago, probably not a thing. Maybe it was. It wasn't in my career, but I think that's a really good sign and just a really good opportunity. One, that leaders of the crew are providing a space for that, and two, for the younger firefighters, be it GS3s, 4s, 5, just to see that from leadership and getting an opportunity to speak up. So yeah, I thought that was pretty inspiring, hearing a lot of that through some of the refreshers. And I know that has been encouraged by the federal agencies as well. So kudos to all for that. And that's all I had. Thanks.
Thanks, Dutch. I do. That's a really excellent point, that somehow we have to remove the stigma of mental health awareness and comprehensive health and wellness. So the work that Dutch is doing to bring this to light, he is the lead for pillar two, but there's so many nuances underneath pillar two. And by the time you kind of hear about all these different things that we're working on, you're just like, geez, it's going to take a long time to really, tackle this. But we've been very strategic of being able to bend some of these items in these pillars. Some might just be agency policy that might be able to be changed, but it is very, very intriguing to both the national media and to the elected officials that, we are a solid group that is, providing that education and information, basically from all of us with boots on the ground with hundreds, if not thousands of years of wildland fire experience. And so the work that Dutch is doing is tremendous and very commendable as we start thinking about where we really need to bolster our support. So that comprehensive health and well-being, Dutch did a great job. There's a couple of things. One of the things that really got our attention early on was the number of people complaining about OWCP and denial of claims by Department of Labor. We still think that might be a problem, and those are things that we would really encourage the senior leadership from Forest Service and Department of Interior to really look at the internal processes with OWCP claims. We've heard horror stories about people having to pay their own bills, people filing for bankruptcy, and really egregious situations. That should not be the case. So we really want to highlight the weaknesses in that program, and that deserves a lot of attention. And the other one is the employee assistance program. We know that through experience from hearing from you, that we really don't have well-trained people to deal with the uniqueness of the traumas that wildland firefighters deal with. And it may not even be trauma, but it might also be, financial. So there's a disconnect there with the EAP process. Number one, of having trained personnel to talk to, And then number two is we want to make sure that our temp seasonals have access to the support structure when they get laid off. And I've heard this time and time again that, you know, that when you're a temp seasonal, you're not considered an employee anymore, so you don't get the benefits, you know, of being able to contact EAP. So we think that there's a real significant need to really explore where the weaknesses are with EAP. As Dutch had talked about, you know, mental health, PTSD, suicide, domestic issues is all wrapped up into comprehensive health and well-being. Smoke exposure, you know, we're really trying to jump in on that one. How do we do a better job of, you know, tracking significant smoke exposures when we're out on fire assignments? There's other agencies that do that because they are emergency responders, but we don't because we're forestry technicians. So that's the narrative that I've heard. I'm going to just go with that for right now. So these presumptive health issues that we see after people retire, cardiovascular, cancer, you know, compromised lung capacity. All these are things that in a typical 6C and or emergency responder or law enforcement, all these issues are addressed within that pay, within their job classification and pay, and ours isn't. So those are things that we're fighting for too, is really bring attention to the fact that, you know, because of this antiquated system with forestry technicians that first got started in the late 60s and early 70s, we're really putting pressure on folks to say it's time to modernize the federal wildland fire response. It includes classification, pay, benefits, mental health, presumptive disease. So it's a great big, you know, how do you really tackle all this? And that's why, again, we've kind of been these into these pillars. So if you have thoughts about that, Dutch, before I go on to pillar 3, expanded workforce, I'll give you another opportunity if there's anything that I might have missed on that belongs in your wheelhouse.
Oh, that covers it, Kelly, and just a huge thanks to the Comprehensive Health and Wellbeing Subcommittee and all the folks that are participating in that. I know it's tough during fire season, but appreciate all the help. Wouldn't be possible without them. That's all.
Thanks. And what Smoke Jumper Bro showed us on the website that there is a contact us, and if there is interest, if you have an interest in working on pillar 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have an opportunity to kind of, we can't get back to you right away, but we are collecting up names, you know, as we need more analysis or data. Let's see, I'm going to have to ask Stephen to mute your, I can't see you on my list here. Brandon, you might be able to find him and mute his screen. So, okay, so that's pillar 2. Pillar 3 is expanded workforce. And this is really coming up a lot with our agencies, is transitioning out of a seasonal workforce to a permanent workforce. And you might be hearing the ratio of 80-20, where 80% of the firefighters are going to now be permanent and only 20 are going to be seasonal. And in some cases, we're looking at permanent full-time. And what we're really hearing is like, you can't ask the existing workforce to do more just by putting them on permanent full-time. People are maxed out at the end of the summer by 1,200 hours of overtime. There is definitely a need to recharge, to take some downtime. So we think that this, although the intent might be well-meaning, the outcome could have a very significant impact on more people wanting to leave because they don't want to work permanent full-time, especially at that entry level, say GS3 to GS7. So we want to be very careful about how we move forward with transitioning into a permanent year-round workforce. The expanded workforce, not only do we need the support from a preparedness and emergency response perspective, but we also recognize that in order to do justice to the prescribed fire fuels program, there's going to be an increasing need well into the future for local rural communities to put youth to work doing prescribed fire fuels work at a local level. So asking the preparedness, not that they can't do that. We expect them to be the leaders and the subject matter experts, helping with prescribed fire landscape treatments. But having the existing workforce is just not going to work. So, we've been on this, hill climb, even with the National Fire Plan 20 years ago, with increasing budget and increasing hotshot crews. And that peak just keeps getting higher and higher. So we're not able to really get to that peak and actually flatten that peak. And we can't do that with the existing workforce without really thinking about how we can expand the workforce, and ask for more money through appropriations for both the Department of Agriculture and Interior, for the Forest Service, Park Service, BLM, BIA, and Fish and Wildlife. So there's a tremendous amount of work out there that has to be done, with the expanded workforce. Pillar 4 is a federal wildland fire service organization concept. We haven't put a lot of time and energy into this, but we know that there are some duplications and inefficiencies, between the two departments. Most of it has to do with IT. We know we have separate training and qualification systems within the Forest Service 510917, within the Department of Interior 310-1. So we're agreements, trying to pen agreements for a prescribed burn or any sort of agreement between two departments is almost maddening. So what if at some point in the future we looked at a federal wildland fire service organization? It has been tossed around before, but again, paramount to our work right now is pay and benefits parity. So we're not putting a lot of effort behind Pillar 4, but it is something that the elected officials and the media is also interested in, as well as the public, to see if there's more efficiencies that can be gained. GAO will be doing an audit based upon the issues that we've been bringing up with the elected officials and in the media. So I think that will be a good opportunity for us to really be very transparent about what some of where some of these stumbling blocks are, and how do we really address the need for human and fiscal capital to really deal with this exponential increase in wildland fire and the emergency response, not just for wildland fire, but certainly we respond to hurricanes, floods, 9/11, shuttle disasters, you name it. So we do think that the time is now just to transition out of forestry technician into a professional series. So it's been a couple of times where I've presented this. I know there's probably lots more questions, and we will definitely get into your questions, and maybe Brandon can even help me with some of these questions. But the chat is also recorded, but it's not anything that we post on the internet. But it does help us as our team, as we're really starting to kind of tease through some of these finer details, to help us do the best job that we can on your behalf, advocating on your behalf to Congress, to the 117th. We have numerous briefings with Feinstein and Porter, New Mexico, Colorado. So it really is exciting that we feel that we're helping our elected officials, the people who work for us, really giving them a very honest and fair and transparent view of what some of these issues are and why we need to really push for these reforms. So Brandon, I'm going to turn it back to you, and I think we might be ready to open it up for questions if you want to take a look at what's in the chat box. Anybody can certainly unmute yourself. I think the best thing to do is probably do the hand raise from the participant window, and then we can certainly open it up that way too.
All right, sounds good. And check this out. So I don't know if you guys caught a little bit about Kelly's single person dancing in the field kind of thing, but it's a leadership video that they say it only takes one follower, and we have a pretty cohesive strategy and a lot of like-minded supporters. So I think we got our first follower, and we're growing. So the more people that you guys can tell, the more following that we can build, the faster we get things done. And that's the big point at the end of the day. There is a lot of movement on Capitol Hill. A lot of it we can't talk about, to be honest with you. Unfortunately, we can be vague about it, but we can't answer directly about what's happening behind the scenes due to some non-disclosure activity. With that being said, before the floor opens up, Kelly, do you want to stop recording? That way we can go.
We sure will. Yep.